Biden administration, was not eager to talk about it. They've not yet made a big public fuss about it the way that they did following the October production cuts. And a lot of people have remarked that might be because they're dealing with fewer tools in their toolkit to respond. Last time Biden had authorized the historic release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to lower gas prices. We kind of had emergency reserves to counter that. We're basically out of that emergency supply insofar as Biden can actively order releases, and so we don't have a lot of options left, I guess.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by Energy and Environment Reporter Breanne Deppisch. Breanne, we've had another OPEC plus oil production cut. This has been a recurring issue for the Biden administration, cause of a lot of concern with oil prices. What do we know?
Well, what we know is OPEC Plus announced a really surprise decision to cut an additional 1.16 million barrels per day from the market. This comes on the heels of their October announcement to slash, some million barrels from the market, and it results in 3.36 million barrels per day off the market, or roughly 3.7% of global supply. A pretty big deal, certainly, for oil prices, and probably not news that the Biden administration that has heavily pushed against the October cuts wanted to hear. So this took markets by surprise, and oil prices jumped about 8% immediately on the news. That's the largest single day rise in at least a year, if not more.
So this has got to be kind of concerning because, Biden administration, number one, thought maybe we were turning the corner on inflation. And inflation's been the biggest economic challenge that they've faced. And then they've really been trying this sort of dance with the Saudis, maybe reviewing the relationship, but then again, maybe going over there, for example, but maybe some maintaining the status quo a little bit. Is there going to be some big break that results from this?
It's hard to tell. I think a lot of analysts pointed out in the immediate aftermath, the Biden administration, was not eager to talk about it. They've not yet made a big public fuss about it the way that they did following the October production cuts. And a lot of people have remarked that might be because they're dealing with fewer tools in their toolkit to respond. Last time Biden had authorized the historic release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to lower gas prices. We kind of had emergency reserves to counter that. We're basically out of that emergency supply insofar as Biden can actively order releases, and so we don't have a lot of options left, I guess, to sort of combat that and put more oil on the market in the meantime. At least not Biden unilaterally. So in terms of options to respond, there aren't a lot, and a lot of folks have said, expect to see a spike in gas prices. Expect it to come at least, at the start of driving season this summer.
So you mentioned the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What are some of the things that are going on now? As the Biden administration has wanted to sort of restock it after we got high on our own supply or whatever. When that was a major component to their fight against high gas prices when that was a major issue. But now the status of the SPR is a real concern to a lot of lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
Yes, actually, Republicans sent a letter to Jennifer Granholm asking for the status. This is the latest in a number of inquiries they've sent over. There are concerns, and we've talked about this before, just about the structural integrity of SPR if it's not filled at a certain level, as well as just damage that can be caused by repeated drawdowns. It is at its lowest level since 1984. This is a risk to national security. Hurricane season, when that comes, that historically has been a big use of what we use SPR oil for, especially damage in the Gulf Coast. So there are definitely concerns there, and I think summer gas prices are a risk. Certainly going to be a unpopular time for the Biden administration politically if we see prices get anywhere near the record highs that they were last summer. I think right now analysts are a little bit more, they're expecting a modest increase of about, up to 30 cents per gallon at the start of summer, but that could certainly change.
So we're, who's zooming who is the big question of the week. So electric vehicles, very desirable. The administration and a lot of policymakers would like to see them much more widely adopted than they currently are. But there remain some challenges that are sort of impinging on widespread use of these vehicles. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so I've done a lot of reporting on this recently. The problems are sort of, I guess, twofold. One is at the driver level, right? The Biden administration has set a really ambitious target of, reaching 50% of new EV sales, having EVs represent 50% of new car sales by 2030. That is an ambitious target. Anyways, and add to the fact that a lot of drivers are not yet wanting to make the switch. They're concerned about reliability, even with mitigating the high upfront costs through the consumer tax credit and different things like that.
Right, these are expensive.
They're expensive vehicles, to be sure, and so, but even drivers who could otherwise afford it, say there's not really enough infrastructure, charging infrastructure built out yet to support this. For a lot of people, there's not great options, especially people who don't have private garages. If they want to use private chargers, they basically have to wait in a parking lot for as long as it takes to charge an EV, which could take a couple hours. And if you live in an urban area, like DC, New York, major cities, most of them, there's not really a lot of infrastructure downtown yet, and not a lot of great places to charge up.
So the state of the electric vehicle market is shocking.
Yes, that's one way. And then I guess the other flip side of that is the reliability concerns, right? This demand if we were to increase EV adoption at the rate the Biden administration hopes, power grids are really at risk. We've seen blackout threats in Texas and California, and certainly this is not a new issue, but it is one that is going to increase as we continue to electrify the grid. And EVs are expected to place major additional demand on that. So concerns of reliability are huge. People are talking about, there are studies encouraging daytime charging, building out public infrastructure for chargers so people can do so during the day. But so that's also part of the what's driving the skepticism, right? I think drivers don't feel like there's enough tools in place yet for them to make that switch.
They know where they can go get gas, but they're worried about where they're going to be able to charge, and they're worried about whether these vehicles are really going to be as reliable as Old Faithful.
Yes, and add to it the fact that it's not a one-size-fits-all for chargers. EVs take all different types of chargers.
I mean, phones are like that, right?
Exactly. So imagine pulling up to a charging station, in a rural state, and having the risk that it be like the equivalent of an Android charger, and you needed an iPhone. So.
Well, that's how we'll find out who's really in charge in America.
Exactly.
Thank you, Breanne.
Thank you.
You can read Breanne and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.